Hello, hello, hello. This is a day that the Lord has made, and I will rejoice and be glad in it. I'm Dr. Dana Carson, affectionately known as the Kingdom Voice, and I want to welcome you to this very special presentation, Let's Talk Christmas. And I want to give you just a little bit of time to come on in the room, come on in from Facebook, come on in from Instagram, come on in from YouTube, come on in from wherever you are, come on in. Before I get formally started here, I'm going to be started in the next 30 to 40 seconds, but you know that God has blessed me with the opportunity to have engaged and participated in scholarship and seminary and a formal theological education. And so that has given me access to what some others may not have either been interested in or didn't take advantage of. And so it has provided me an opportunity just to study, and learn. And people are always asking me questions. You have movements out there like the Black Israelites. You have movements out there, Jehovah's Witness and Seventh-day Adventists, and all other kinds of groups of people, and atheists and agnostics, and just those who are ever learning but never coming to the knowledge of the truth. They're always studying. And unfortunately, in Christianity, we tend to have more illiterate believers than we have literate believers in terms of Christian doctrine. And so people are attacking certain beliefs always in the church, and the church really doesn't know, many of us, where we really stand and how to defend or respond to certain things. Now, I wrote a book that I think that would really bless someone this holiday season. If you wanted to share the gift of kindness, love, and appreciation for someone in a positive direction for Christian witness, my book, The 5 Watersheds of History and Theology. You know, it's a fresh look at 21st century Christianity in light of cultural distortions and the kingdom of God. In that book, I talk about the 5 watersheds of history and theology, and I talk about how the faith has been contaminated with Romanization, Europeanization, colonization, Westernization, and Americanization of the gospel. And this season that we have entered in falls in to one of those watershed understandings. Now, we want to talk Christmas, and I want you to hold on to your seatbelts. And I also want you to know, after I finish with my presentation, I'm going to answer questions. So while I'm talking and sharing with you the real and the true or historic meaning of Christmas, please feel free, and I encourage you to send questions in, because I'm joined today with my lovely wife, First Lady, Pastor Rachel Carson, tremendous Bible teacher, and also evangelist Sam Johnson, my son, who is a preaching machine, and both of them are scholars in their own right. And And so they're going to receive questions as you send them in. So please send your questions in because we're live right now. This is not pre-recorded. This is live. See there? Ouch. Listen, this is live. Now, I want to talk Christmas. So, you know, the celebration of Christmas has been one of the most favorite, long celebrated holidays of the year. You know, songs have been written that say with the lyrics that it's the most wonderful time or favorite time of the year. However, the late 20th century development, Christmas, and attitudes concerning Christmas has caused great controversy among Christians. Many Christians believe that the world has taken or stolen Christmas away from the church. And many believers are complaining and fighting and arguing because they feel like the world has stole Christmas. And we get upset when we see Xmas, which X speaks of the Greek word chro, which stands for Christ, or so it's the Christ Mass. But they say, man, they just taking Christ out of Christmas. They taking and put Happy Xmas and Happy Holidays. Now, the church, however, aggressively suggests that Christ has been taken out of the season, which they believe Jesus is the reason for the season. Yes, he is. And that's what so this is where the church position is. However, a closer look into ecclesiastical history, we discovered that Jesus was not the reason for the season, and Christmas was simply another pagan holiday integrated with Christianity in the Constantinian Empire of Rome, aimed at appeasing the pagans of the Roman Empire as they made Christianity the official religion of Rome. Now, I want you to understand, the early church did not keep track nor celebrate the birth of Christ. There are no records that provide a definitive date for the birth of Christ. However, biblical context lets us know that it definitely was not in December. So where did December the 25th come from? Both historical and contemporary scholarship dispels the myth that Christ was born on December the 25th. Now, I was born on December the 25th, but Christ wasn't born on December the 25th. Hint, hint, hint. Now, listen, the earliest gospel, which was Mark, and when we say Mark, that's the oldest manuscript that we have. And so the earliest gospel, which is Mark, it was believed to have been written in about 65 AD. So the Markan gospel, so it helps us to understand the priorities of the gospel writers. And Mark got his gospel from Peter, and Luke got his gospel from Paul. Paul got his gospel from the disciples. However, when we look at the Markan gospel, Mark begins his story of Christ, not with the birth of Christ, but the baptism of Christ, which suggests that the early Christians lack interest in Jesus' birthday. The birth of Christ has been calculated and speculated to be on dates ranging from March, August, and November with no certainty. So you may be asking, so where does December the 25th come from? Well, it was it was a pagan holiday. Saturnalia, which was a week-long period of lawlessness, believed to have been celebrated December the 17th through December the 25th. During this period, the Roman courts were closed. They closed the courts, and Roman law dictated that no one could be punished for damaging property or injuring people during this celebration. The celebration began by the Roman authorities selecting an enemy to the Roman people to represent the Lord of misrule. Each Roman community selected a victim whom they forced to indulge in food and other physical pleasures throughout that week, the 17th through the 25th. And at the closing of the festival, December the 25th, the Roman authorities believed they were destroying the forces of darkness by brutally murdering the innocent man or woman that suffered that week, December the 17th through the 25th. Christmas is a watershed celebration that was integrated during the Romanization of the gospel. Christmas has its root in paganism. The celebration of Saturnalia. Saturnalia was an ancient Roman festival in honor of the deity Saturn, held on the 17th of December, expanded with festivals through, some say the 25th. There are other historians that say the 23rd. The holiday was celebrated with a sacrifice at the temple of Saturn. In the Roman Forum, they would perform this sacrifice, and it was a public banquet followed by private gift giving, continual partying, and a carnival atmosphere that overturned Roman social norms. Gambling was permitted, and masters provided table services for their slaves. Now, the poet Catulus called it the best of days. In Roman mythology, Saturn was an agricultural deity who was said to have reigned over the world in the Golden Age. When humans, they call the Golden Age as the age when humans enjoyed the spontaneity of bounty of the earth without labor in a state of social egalitarianism. Now, this meant that the god Saturn was in need of the sun god in order to complete his job. Now, I want you to listen to this. Therefore, the attention was then shifted to the sun god, S-U-N, sun. The Saturnalia custom is rooted in a pagan and Celtic belief and traditions. They believed in human sacrifice, including the sacrifice of small children and infants, in which they were offered to their gods in order to empower the sun, S-U-N, to return with strength. They believed if they would sacrifice their children or the innocent person, that the sun would return with strength. They believed that winter was due to the sun losing its power due to a battle between the sun god and the god of the dead. Now, you've been saying, well, I'm trying to tell you about the historic meaning of where Christmas comes from. Now, since winter is an annual season, they believe these battles were fought annually or every year, and thus sacrifices had to be annual in order to appease or empower their respective gods. Because the sun always returned at the beginning of the new year, they believed that it was due to all of the human sacrifices and custom rituals that took effect during this time, empowering the sun god to return each year victoriously. In the 4th century, the Roman Catholic Church adopted Saturnalia, the festival, in hopes to take the pagan masses in with it. But in the 4th century, Christianity imported the Saturnalia festival, and Christian leaders succeeded in converting the festival into Christianity and bringing large numbers of pagans in by promising them that they could continue to celebrate the Saturnalia as Christians. The problem was that there was nothing intrinsically Christian about Saturnalia. So in order to remedy this, these Christian leaders named Saturnalias a day, they put it on a specific day, December the 25th, and they said that we will call this Christ's birthday. So in ancient Judaism or Second Temple Judaism, you will find no literature, you won't find the early church celebrating the birth of Christ. You will see them focusing on the resurrection of Christ, but they understood that he was the Son of God and the Son of Man, which was extremely significant in theology in terms of who he was, the identity of Christ, but they did not celebrate the day of Christ's birth. So Catholic teachers or leaders succeeded in converting Saturnalia into a Christian holiday, but they continue to have difficulties with the conversion of pagans to the holiday Saturnalia, or as they named it then, Christmas. However, once again, Christians had little success refining the practices of Saturnalia. The ancient Greek writer and poet and historian Lucian, in his dialogue entitled Saturnalia, he describes the festival's observance in his time, in addition to the human sacrifice that we talked about. He mentions these customs that were widespread: intoxication, going from house to house while singing naked, rape and other sexual licenses, and consuming human-shaped biscuits. Still produced in some English countries now, and most German bakeries during during the Christmas season, they cook cookies shaped like humans. Now, it was appeared, some of us may call it the gingerbread man, okay? And so it was apparent that Christians had little success refining the practices of Saturnalia. Stephen Nasenbaum, he was the professor of history at UMass Amherst. He writes, in return for ensuring massive observation of the anniversary of the Savior's birth by assigning it to this resonant date, the church, for its part, tacitly agreed to allow the holiday to be celebrated more or less the way it had always been. The earliest Christmas holidays were celebrated by drinking, sexual indulgence, singing naked in the streets, which was a precursor of modern caroling. The Puritans banned the celebration of Christmas in Boston between 1659 and 1681. The Roman Catholic Church revived many of the most depraved customs of the Saturnalia in 1466, when Pope Paul II, for the amusement of the Roman citizens, forced Jews to race naked through the streets of the city. Now, the practice of Christmas, historically was a very anti-Semitic and highly pagan celebration, from the Santa Claus to the Christmas tree. Now, the worship of trees in the forest was a long pagan practice, and they brought the trees into their homes and they decorated them. The mistletoe has its origin in Greek mythology and is associated with poison. Druid rituals. Now, Druids were members of the learned class among the Celts. They acted as priests, teachers, and judges. And so they used the mistletoes to poison their human sacrificial victims. The kissing under the mistletoe was a later synthesis of the sexual license of Saturnalia with the Druid sacrificial cult. So that's why you have people kissing under the mistletoe. And I don't know if that means romance ends up in death. I don't know. But the gift-giving practice originated with the Roman emperors demanding their most despised citizens to bring gifts and offerings during the Saturnalia. Eventually, the practice was expanded to the general public. The Catholic Church gave its customs to the supposed giving of Saint Nicholas. Now, Saint Nicholas, who we have come to know as Santa Claus, Saint Nicholas was one of the bishops who convened in Nicene, the Nicene councils, and who promoted Jews as children of the devil who killed Jesus. Stories spread about the fame of St. Nicholas and gift giving to children, filling their stockings or wooden shoes. The Catholic Church adopted the Nicholas cult as a practice and taught that gift giving should be done on December the 25th. Now, in 1809, novelist Washington Irving, he was responsible for the most famous, The Legend of Sleepy Hollow and Rip Van Winkle. This helped to really concretize and cement in the minds the celebration of Christmas. He wrote a satire of Dutch culture entitled The Knickerbocker History. The satire refers several times to the white-bearded, flying horse riding Saint Nicholas using his Dutch name, Santa Claus. Now, Dr. Clement Moore, a professor at Union Seminary, read Knickerbocker history, and in 1822, he published a poem based on the character Santa Claus. 'Twas the night before Christmas, when all through the house not a creature was stirring, not even a mouse. The stockings were hung by the chimney with care, in the hope that St. Nicholas would soon be there. Now, more, he innovated by portraying a Santa with 8 reindeers who descended through chimneys. Now, the Bavarian illustrator Thomas Nast almost completed the modern picture of Santa Claus from 1862 through 1886 based on Moore's poem. Nast drew more than 2,200 cartoon images of Santa from Harper's Weekly. Before Nast, St. Nicholas had been pictured as everything from a stern-looking bishop to a gnome-like figure in a frock. Nast also gave Santa a home at the North Pole, his workshop filled with elves, and his list of good and bad children of the world. All Santa was missing was his red outfit. And in 1931, the Coca-Cola Corporation contracted the Swedish commercial artist Hatten Sundblom to create a Coke-drinking Santa. Sundblom modeled his Santa on his friend Lou Prentice, chosen for his cheerful, chubby face. The corporation insisted that Santa, his fur trim suit, be bright, Coca-Cola red. And Santa was born, a blend of Christian crusader, pagan god, and commercial idol. Many who are excitedly preparing for their Christmas celebration would prefer not knowing about the holiday's real significance. So I know some of you say that he sounds like the Grinch that stole Christmas. He sounds like Ebenezer Scrooge. He sounds like Christmas is canceled. Now, you know, people prefer not to know this, but you believers have to know this. See, because people, if they don't know the history, they often object that their celebration has nothing to do with the holiday's monstrous history and meaning. We're just having fun. But just consider this. Imagine that between 1933 and 1945, the Nazi regime celebrated Adolf Hitler's birthday, April the 20th, as a holiday. Imagine that day named the day Hitler Day. And observance, people observed the day with feasting, drunkenness, gift giving, and various pagan practices. Imagine that on that day, Jews were historically subject to perverse tortures and abuse, and that this continued for centuries. Now, imagine that your great grandchildren were about to celebrate Hitler Day, April 20th, when it arrived. They had long forgotten about Auschwitz and Bergen and Belsen. They had never heard of gas chambers or death marches. They had purchased champagne and caviar and were about to begin the party when someone reminded them on the day's real history and their ancestors' agony. Imagine that they initially objected and said, we're not going to celebrate the Holocaust. We're just having a little Hitler Day party. Now, if you could travel forward in time and meet them, if you could say a few words to them, What would you advise them to do on Hitler's Day? We should celebrate every day, beloved, concerning the birth of Christ. But we also have to remember that education is liberation. We shouldn't denounce December the 25th because the pagans celebrated it a particular way. But we must understand these holidays. And when people come to you and they charge you up about these days, and they have history on their side and you have ignorance on your side, and you at least ought to know, well, yeah, that's true, but here's this. So consider this. Education is liberation. We should, we have to understand Jesus is not the reason for the season, but we must celebrate Christ every day of our life. Now, look at the stats of what happens during this season. 53% of people experience financial stress due to holiday spending. Look at that, folk, money's gone. The average person spends an average of $1,000 each year on holiday gifts, and this money does not include money spent on food, travel, decoration, Christmas trees, etc. E-commerce sales on Cyber Monday this year was $27 billion, right in the midst of COVID. When I was in my Global Executive MBA program at the Fuqua School of Business at Duke University, we studied corporations, and we found out there were some industries that during the Christmas season, they made more money from November to December than they made from January through October. That's how much money was made during the Christmas season. 22% of people start their holiday shopping in October. 31% of Americans say during this season they feel lonely during the holiday. Now, during the holiday season, they feel lonely. 41% have worried about a family member or friend feeling lonely during this time. 64% of people with mental illnesses experience more symptoms during the holidays. Now, the suicide rates used to increase during Christmas time, but for the last couple of years, the suicide rates are tending to fall during the holiday seasons, which is a good thing. But now here's the question. How do we handle this season? Now, when we know that Christ is not the reason for the season, and people that are celebrating Christmas all over the world are not doing so as kingdom citizens, but as those who are gathering for drinking, partying, etc. Now, we cannot get upset and say, look at them, make a mockery of Jesus' birthday, because that's nonsensical, non-biblical, and not historically correct. So we can't get upset because they are celebrating Saturnalia, which name was changed to Christmas, engaging in holidays, because it isn't a Christian holiday, even though it is a watershed celebration. Now, so what do we do now? Then I want to leave you with this, and I'm going to answer some questions. So what do we do, Dr. Carson, during the Christmas season? What do we do, Scrooge? What do we do, Grinch? What do we do, man who tried to cancel my Christmas? Listen, what do we do? Here's what I believe we should do. One is we need to take advantage of opportunity. What do you mean opportunity? I believe since the world has become sensitive to the birth of Christ during this time of the year, even though we know that is not accurate biblically. But because people are more tolerant, people are more open to hearing about the birth of Christ. And it's interesting because during Christmas time, people only want to talk about the baby Jesus. They act like he never grew up and became a man. and he was a controversial man, and he was a confrontative man, but he also was a conquering king. And so I think that we need to take the opportunity to share the nature of Christ as the Son of God and the Son of Man. Because people are open now, I think we need to take the opportunity and share. If people are interested in hearing about the incarnation during December, then I believe as the church, we want to take advantage of any and every opportunity we have to share Christ. We don't want to boycott December the 25th because others abuse it. Look at Sunday. Sunday was a day that when I was coming up, we had the blue law. You couldn't, there were certain things you couldn't do on Sunday. You couldn't purchase alcohol until after a certain time, and the stores were closed down. Well, I'm saying once they did away with blue law, we didn't do away with church. And so I'm saying to you, we want to take advantage of this opportunity. We don't want to throw December the 25th away because we know that the world is now celebrating it in fleshly ways. I believe we should. That's one. And then two, I believe that we are to see it as an option as well. Because I see positivity, not simply because my birthday is on December the 25th. Hint, hint. No, listen, I see opportunity. It's the end of the year. And personally, like in December, I take my sabbatical. I'm on sabbatical right now, but people have been asking me about this Christmas piece. And so I said, okay, let me come out of sabbatical and do a live piece on Christmas just to empower believers on how to answer these types of questions. But now, this option, I believe, like December, I believe that it's a wonderful month for family, fun, fellowship, and faith. So it's the end of the year. You're gearing up for the next year. And so I believe that we ought to take and opt out for the option of making it family time. And it's nothing wrong if your family wants to have a grab bag and you want to give gifts to one another. I mean, that's fine. If you want to be festive, but you need to understand what it is you're doing and how you're celebrating. Because truth of the matter is there are a lot of things that we do and practice that have their origin in paganism and we don't know. And we can take this time and use the option to have fellowship. You're not serving the devil if you got lights on your house. You're not serving the devil if you have a Christmas tree. But you need to understand the origins of these things and to be able to make the distinction of, this is a festive time for us. This is family. This is year end. And, you just have to know what you're doing, because some people, they take every little thing they can against the church and use the history of things against. So when it comes to Easter, I have to talk to you about the Druids and the Celts and all of that doing Easter. But we're not going to not celebrate the resurrection because of Easter, the pagan celebration of Easter. Now, so opportunity, but then we have an option to celebrate family, man. Have a good time. This is the end of the year. You done worked hard. You done put up with all kind of mess. Relax. Have a great time. Enjoy that they let us off. It's good for the economy. It's good for the family. It's good for humans and corporations. Here you go. Here's the last thing, offerings. corporate giving increases, and people are giving so that they can get their tax write-offs by the end of the year. So I believe the third thing is that we ought to look at offerings. We ought to celebrate the ministry of Christ and support the work of Christ. Open our hearts. Now, to celebrate the work of Christ. Let me say this first. Because ministry should not suffer because of Christmas. It should not be the lowest giving month of the year. I believe because we're acknowledging the incarnation, because we are acknowledging Christ. Remember, when Christ was not in the manger, but he was in the house. He was a little child. The wise men from the east, they came and they gave their treasures to Christ. To the child, they gave frankincense, gold, myrrh, And so I believe that this is a time, if we're going to acknowledge the incarnation, that we ought to be giving towards what Christ came for, the ministry of the kingdom. So I believe that we ought to open our hearts. Then the last is that we ought to open our hearts to the less fortunate and share with children and hurting people during this time, because people have they become more benevolent, more generous of this time during this time, and I believe that's a good thing. Anything that can make a wicked heart give, I support and celebrate. And so that's beloved, that's the history of Christmas. I believe that we should in this time worship God. Listen, if you want to celebrate the incarnation, spend take a day of December the 25th as believers, and then say, we're going to celebrate the incarnation. Have a worship. And then you can say, truly, this is the most wonderful time of the year because he came, and then be a witness to the lost. Well, that's I want to see if we got questions in here. Hopefully you've sent some questions. All right, you got questions?
We have a couple of questions.
Okay. Bring your questions. My wife said we have a couple of questions. Come on. Now, some of you, come on, bring your questions. I want to answer your questions. Because you don't have no questions, remember, I'm on sabbatical. So if you don't have no questions, I'm going to leave. Okay, what you got?
Well, some of the questions you've answered because they were wanting to know kind of in advance before you said it. But someone asked about the Christmas tree and said, are you supporting pagan holidays because we like a decorated tree and lights?
No. So I kind of answered that as well. Now, believe it or not, Martin Luther, the great reformer, now you got to also know he was anti-Semitic and, so forth. But he was noted for lighting the first Christmas tree, lighting it, putting lights on it, decorating it. Now, in German, they looked at the Christmas tree as representing Christ because they said it was the evergreen tree that kept its non-changing nature and character all year long. Now, unless you are singing songs like, oh, Christmas tree, oh, Christmas tree, we're not trying to worship no Christmas tree. But if you're trying to just celebrate and you like your house vibrant and so forth, many of us, when I first came into the knowledge of what Christmas was really about and its history, man, I was very radical. At that point, I was a lot younger. I was very radical. I said, no Christmas tree, no lights, no poinsettias, no nothing. That's pagan. And so the older I got, I didn't become compromised. I just became a little bit more balanced and mature in my approach, understanding that if you know the history of a thing, we don't walk around and say because people you worship trees then we look at trees as something negative, and we stay away from trees. Because if that was the case, you wouldn't have no furniture. Get that furniture out your house, because that's a tree. Now, and it's been decorated with pillows and all kinds of stuff. So no, if you want to be festive during December, that's your prerogative. You're not gonna go to hell because you got no Christmas lights. You're gonna go to hell because you don't know the Bible. Now, that's not because you got lights on your house. Okay, what we got?
What type of sources do you recommend to study more on Christmas?
Well, history. You can go online. You can, the internet can give you a great deal of information. You look up the origin of Christmas. You can use the internet to give you great information. Is that it? That's it. After all these, I probably answered a lot of questions. Listen, if you have a question that I didn't answer, you got about 2 minutes to 3 minutes, 2 or 3 minutes to send it in. But this is what I want to ask you to do for me, and I hope that you've enjoyed our time. One of the things, I said opportunity, option, offering, and opening our hearts to share with those that are less fortunate. Now, all over the country, ministries become benevolent and share. We have done so many different programs and so many charity events during the month of December. I can't even recall all that we've done. And we've done it because Jesus said, when you've done it to the least of them, you've done it unto me. And one of the things I'm going to ask you to do for me today is that, Christmas is my 60th birthday. That's when I will officially turn 60. But today I am 59. I'm 59. I'm in my 50s. I'm not in my 60s until 2 days. 2 days. So right now I'm still in the 50 club. They about to put me out. They get my papers ready and everything, my exit interview. But listen, I'm going to ask that you do this in honor of my birthday. Help me open up our hearts and share. One of the projects that I'm involved in now is called the ACTS Project, Assisting Communities Towards Success. It's one of our 501c3 nonprofit ventures. I'm going to ask that you would do this for me. Would you sow a $60 seed or a $600 seed or a $6,000 seed if you'd like, but at least a $60 seed towards our ACTS project. Now, what's that? Our ACTS project is we are developing an academic and values through athletics program. God has blessed us so much here at The Rock that we are so fortunate. We have 3 full gymnasiums, one in Alvin, one on Edgebrook, one on Broadway here in Houston, and a large outdoor, totally fenced sports court, outdoor sports court that's set up for regulation basketball, 3 full courts. And once this pandemic is over, we plan to sometime in May and June be ready to launch athletic programs to help our children to get back in physical health and stamina, because many of our kids have been very inactive, and many of them still enjoy sports as they're watching virtual NBA and so forth. And so in one of our gymnasiums, we have to In fact, we have a couple we have to bring up to the standard for competitive sports. But right now on Broadway, we are trying to get the sports floor for that gymnasium. And if I can get enough of you to open up your hearts and say, man, I want to sow $60 for the ministry of our children and youth as we prepare to provide them meaningful ministry through athletics, which helps them to increase their health. Now, if you do that, we will greatly appreciate it. And Jesus said, when I was naked, you clothed me. When I was hungry, you fed me. When I was in prison, you came to visit me. And that list could go on and on. That wasn't restricting our benevolence and charity to only feeding, clothing, and prison ministry. And he said, you'll say, when did I do that? He said, when you did it to the least of them. We have problems with our children, especially in this area, with homelessness, with high school dropout rate. We have life skill issues. Our children are struggling and hurting, and they need mentorship. And one of the things that we're doing is we're putting together this athletic program. And we would love, and we have 3-4 gymnasiums and an outdoor sports court. So God has blessed us and situated us for such a time as this. And so I'm going to ask, in honor of my birthday, would you sow that seed of $60, $600, or $6,000 so that we can complete our gymnasium on Broadway? We're kind of doing it. We have to totally renovate it. We've purchased the new basketball goals, but we've got to get the sports floors, the equipment. We've got to do some other things. And I think that many of you that are looking to be benevolent during this season and you want to make a difference, because, people give during this time. You have Salvation Army, they put their people out. You have Santas that are entrepreneurs, and they just out, putting on a suit, just collecting money because they know people give during this season. But you could be giving towards the perpetuation of ministry, that the message of Christ will continue in perpetuity because of your seed to our young people. So you can text to give. That number's right there on your screen, 281-306-4130. You can give by way of CashApp, $Rock HQ, or you can give Zelle, accounting at therockwi.com, or you can go to our website, therockwi.com, and sow that seed of $60, and it would be a blessing. I hope that you've enjoyed us live on today. Rochelle, and we got a couple more questions. Okay, let's see what we have.
So, Dr. Carson, should we give up the slogan, Jesus is the reason for the season? And if so, what's good for a kingdom citizen to say?
Well, I think that Paul writes, and he says that we are not considered one day above another day. All days are to, this is a day that the Lord has made. So in terms of Jesus is the reason for the season, I do think that that's a bit deceiving in terms of, Jesus is the reason for every season. But, we have to be careful when we say he's the reason for the Christmas season. So, you just have to be careful. I can't tell anybody what to do. And if I said we should give up the slogan, Jesus is the reason for the season, ain't nobody going to get that up because I said it. I'm not deceived, I know who I am and the level of influence I carry. But I think you just need to know that we have songs that we sing, and but you just need to know. Okay, what else you got?
Is telling the kids Santa is coming to bring the gifts the same thing as singing "Oh Christmas Tree"?
Oh, yeah, I think that you ought to stop lying to your kids about a fat white man in a red Coca-Cola suit coming down the chimney, and then you want to know why your kid is suffering from mental illness at 6. So listen, trying to figure out how that man get down the chimney, and and it's not even a real fireplace. So listen, but I think that's a bit much. One of the things I thank my parents for is that even when we participated as kids at Christmas, my parents were former sharecroppers, ex-sharecroppers, and they were hard workers. And there was nowhere in the world my daddy and mama was going to go out there and buy all them gifts and then get a credit to a fat white man in a red suit. They let us know we bought them, and you better thank us. So I think that you need to take that out of here. Somebody call it Satan Claus. Yeah, so you messed up.
Messed up to this day because of that. And a lot of us are, living up north, and you living in a cold climate. It's just more believable. And my parents did tell me Santa Claus brought all my gifts. And sometimes we leave out a cookie, and I mean we did the whole thing. And then on top of that, on the news, they would do satellites. Like they would say, "Oh, we're tracking Santa." The weather person would say, "Oh, he's right over the North Pole," and I get into bed, And so it was a whole myth, but it was supported all the way around. And so even today, when it's warm outside, I just can't get into Christmas because it seems like it ought to be cold outside, So
Okay, not to mention, you're from Detroit, I'm from Chicago, so we never dreamt of a white Christmas. We had a white Christmas, But yeah, it messes up folks. Sam, what you got?
Should we say Happy Holidays instead of Merry Christmas?
I think it's more appropriate. But, don't go to the extreme. I mean, like, many of us been programmed. Like, I'm 60 years old, so inadvertently, I'm going to say sometime Merry Christmas. After I just got finished teaching you all of this. And tomorrow night, we're going to have Christmas with the Carsons, You want to catch that, by the way. We have a special time. It's going to be a special I don't know what we call it, show, presentation, ministry, but it starts at 7:30 p.m. I'm going to welcome you in my home with my children and all of my kids and some special friends and family, and we're going to share Christmas Eve with you. And man, let me tell you something. You're going to really enjoy your time with us if you have time. 7:30 p.m., you don't want to miss it. Tomorrow night, Christmas with the Carsons. And then Thursday morning at 9 a.m., we have that special Friday morning at 9 a.m., we have that special Christmas worship service where we celebrate the incarnation. So I think that's one of the things that you can do to kind of put more of an emphasis for the church, where it becomes a time where we really celebrate the incarnation.
a mother just asked, what do you tell your children to tell other children when they ask, why don't you believe in Santa Claus? And so,
Well, because you tell them because Santa Claus isn't real. He's not a real person. And some people say St. Nicholas. Well, St. Nicholas was a bishop. He was not Santa Claus. And there are all kind of legends about St. Nicholas, and that he would go and on Christmas and fill all of the wooden shoes with gifts, and and that he once gave large portions of wealth to the parents of poor children. And I mean, these are all myths. It's a myth, stop lying to your children. Tell them the truth. When you take all, well, what about nursery rhymes? What about Mother Goose? What about her? What about the woman that lived in the shoe that had so many children, didn't know what she should do? Amen. If your children grow up believing that a woman lives in the shoe and she got so many children and she don't know what to do, see, you done messed your kids up. Well, you see a 17-year-old, you say, where you going? I'm frustrated. What you frustrated about? Because I couldn't find that woman that lived in the shoe. I'm looking for her. And then the other kids sit over here crying. You saying, what's wrong with you? Well, all the king's horses and all the king's men, they couldn't put Humpty back together again. And I believe this morning we ate him. Because he was an egg. I'm just saying, there's one thing to tell your kids fairy tales and all that, and they grow out and they understand that. The enchanted forests and all of that. But people grow up just like my wife. She's in her 50s. She says she's still messed up over Santa Claus. And so, people ingrain that in you. So, yeah. So is that it? Okay, well, listen, our time is up. I love you so very, very much. Now, don't forget, catch Christmas with the Carsons tomorrow night, Thursday night, Christmas Eve at 7:30. Man, we're going to have a great time. You come into my home with me. We're going to have a great time with me and my family and some friends. And then Friday morning at 9 a.m., we're going to have worship on Christmas morning. We're not going to denounce the day. We're going to celebrate and Christ on that day. So join us. Well, I love you so very, very much. Don't forget to support our ACTS program and our athletic program for the children by sowing a seed of $60 in honor of my birthday, or $600 or $6,000 to help us with the sports gym floor and other things to get this gym ready so that we can be there for our kids. Let's pray. Father, in Jesus' name, we thank you now for everyone that's listening. God, I pray now for every person that's going through trouble during this season. Some people have lost their jobs. Some people are low on their finances. Other people are low on their health. And some people are separated from their families during this time. God, I pray that you would give them a peace that passeth all understanding. I pray that miracles would touch their bodies from the crown of their head to the soles of their feet. Lord, I pray now that you would touch minds, bodies, and souls. And God, let this holiday season be one of the most celebrated and appreciated times this year for your people. Let them have a time of favor and a safe fellowship. Now, God, we ask that you would do this in the matchless name of your Son, Jesus Christ, the Jewish Messiah and the King of the world. In Jesus' name, amen. Well, listen, I love you so very, very much. Sam, Rachel, anything you want to say before we go? Evangelist, and y'all want to say anything?
Just happy holidays, everyone.
You looking at me.
Happy holidays, everyone.
Hey, God bless everyone, and I hope that what was said today could help us be more apologetic and evangelistic in this tremendous opportune time where people want to hear about the origins of Christmas. So God bless.
God bless. All right. Well, there you have it. We love you. Till next time, shalom.